Hey everybody, welcome to Chloethedev Unfiltered. Today I'm going to be going through the economic review paper for Ethereum 2.0. It's been out for a little while now. When it first came out, I was really excited to go through it, but I was interning with Hashcloak, and I was so busy going through a bunch of other papers. I didn't have time for this one. About a month ago, I started going through it, and I got about let's see. I got through the summary, I got through the introduction, I got through the background, and then I think around page 13, I kind of didn't even get to the economics and all that. But I did go through. I've been going through um, the ETH Study Master quizzes, and it's been really wonderful to kind of go through the economics and all that in smaller parts. But I do want to go through it all in more depth. In more depth. So I do want to go through the paper in full. With that being said, I'm not going to say that I'll get through it all in one sitting. I used to be able to, I had to have a time to do that. I miss it a lot, actually, being able to sit all day and just read a paper. I think I have a meeting at noon, or it's an hour and 15 minutes, but I at least want to set up recording through the paper and the introduction. So, yeah, I'm just gonna. So it's by Tanner Hoban and Thomas Borgers. I'm probably butchering both of those names. I'm sorry about that. But they both work in corporate development at Consensus. So Consensus is a really large, I guess, corporate arm of. They do a lot of Ethereum companies, and they spin off, and like MetaMask is from Consensus, and a lot of other big companies either were from Consensus or are part of Consensus. Um, so this is kind of like what the paper will go through. You'll have an executive summary, introduction, background, just typical things you'll see when you're going through a paper. So they go through multiple scenarios, which is why I think this is super cool. So usually when you go through a paper, or when you read through a short article on Ethereum 2.0, you're only going to get maybe a short view of like the main scenario and like a bad scenario. But this obviously is giving quite, 2 pages of information about each scenario or more. So it's going to be pretty exciting to get through. And you have your appendix, which I am going to go through in these videos, but it's not going to be one video. It'll be a series where I just maybe do half an hour here, an hour there, and eventually get through this video. So here you go. I've already gone through this part, but I will go through it again. Hopefully read through it pretty quickly. The goal of this is not for someone to actually sit here and read it through with me. The goal would be that, eventually you get annoyed with me talking and you go read the paper for yourself. But if you can't, or if you don't want to, then sure, you can put it on 2x speed and listen to me go through it. Also, it's really more for me, so that I can come back, remember when I started going through this paper, remember what my notes were, remember what I highlighted, and then eventually I want to take those and put them in the notes beneath it and the timestamps, but it's difficult to do. It takes a lot of time, so hopefully I get like an assistant at some point to help me do that, but we'll see. So, Chapter 1, Executive Summary. The Ethereum 2.0 network upgrade is an ambitious and great gradual shift towards a proof-of-stake consensus algorithm and incentive system, which has far-reaching implications on the economic properties of the network. The design of this system is complex. The incentive mechanism rewards honest network participants for validating transactions and finalizing historical states of the network, while penalizing offline and malicious validators. In this paper, we define, measure, and analyze ETH2's cryptoeconomic security using a detailed economic model of the network and the new economic evaluation tools. First, to support an economic review, we constructed an economic model built in Excel for interpreting outputs of the system under current specifications and for select scenarios. Over the course of the project, we incrementally developed and leveraged this model to articulate expectations and form data-driven conclusions on validated revenues, costs, yield, and network assurance. The ETH2 system is reliant on nearly 100 variables that have a material impact on these outputs. With this model, we dynamically illustrate validator profitability at varying ETH prices and total ETH staked, underscoring the variability of impact on network security. So we're going to go through this, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I've gone through this part already, so it's pretty exciting stuff that's going to be in the paper. We define a required and sufficient level of economic security in ETH2 Phase 0 using a set of assumptions around the cost to attack the network. The objective is to make attacks costlier than the potential benefits of an attack, and to achieve a similar level of security to the current Ethereum blockchain ETH1. We identify two main categories of economic attack vectors, each with variants and differing levels of risk: supermajority attacks and finality attacks. In phase 0, we are primarily concerned with attacks that aim to sabotage the network. We find the network is at risk of sustaining such attacks, but are more concerned about further phases. We estimate an ETH stake rate target of 13.8%, which provides adequate security from potential attacks under historical ETH price and hash rate conditions. I like this kind of stuff because it sets out, if you wanted to write a paper, what kind of stuff might you have to do if you were maybe doing this for another blockchain that wanted to have a major upgrade. For EIP 1559, I know Bitcoin is thinking about potentially having an idea like that. For block rewards, potentially after the rewards go down, how can you keep the fee market fair or whatever? So if you wanted to potentially write up a paper about how it would work in Bitcoin, you'd probably have to do similar things. Take Bitcoin's hash rate, historical price, and do a lot of the same projections. Security in F2 is highly dependent on ETH staked, which itself will be a function of yields. We form a model to understand the motivation of capital efficient investors, which is, I think, always difficult, because what about capital inefficient investors, which I guess we call altruistic nodes? Anyways, which we term the required Serenity active validator yield. I love it. Our savvy model, addressing the risks and costs of staking and corresponding rate of return, RRR. Based on our results, we expect a required revenue yield, which is used as a proxy for a minimum yield from validators under an optimized network, endogenous and exogenous of genius. Endogenous and exogenous. Wow. So it's been a long morning. I was picking up trash at the skate park this morning. Anyways, of 3.3% for validators to consider participation. Under a more bearish yet stable scenario, this revenue yield requirement increases to 11.6%. The RSI model is leveraged not only to calculate required rate of returns, but also to form a picture of the network under select scenarios. We apply different parameters in these scenarios to support our conclusions and recommendations, which are summarized below. So not bad. And here we have the basic summary, and if you don't go through any more of the paper, at least here you'll get what the researchers conclude as being important things to take from this paper. Conclusions. Ethereum 2.0's proof of stake is highly complex relative to proof of work. ETH 2.0 is a highly complex and elaborate system. It is elegantly constructed and thoughtfully designed, but from a validator's perspective can be difficult to grasp. Ding, ding, ding. Contributing to a sense of uncertainty and unpredictability, presenting a practical and narrative barrier for potential capital efficient investors. So, I wouldn't say I'm a capital efficient investor. I just don't want to lose all my money. But still, the barriers to entry seem difficult because of all these complex tasks. Proof of work, you just plug in a computer, hit mine, keep your key safe, good to go. With proof of stake, it seems a little more complicated. And it might not be that much more complicated once developers start abstracting away all these complexities into a nice UI. But right now, when I tried a few different testnets. I got my data for the week on my laptop. Couldn't get it on my Ubuntu server. For Zenkin, I didn't get it done in time. I wanted to retry Madasha, sorry, but there's just so much to do, so little time, and right now I'm reading this. So, so security of the network in ETH2 is dependent on three key variables: ETH staked, the price of ETH, and volatility. Each of these variables has a direct or indirect impact on the cost of attacking the network. The total ETH staked is the most controllable variable, while the price of ETH has a direct and potentially large impact on the network security, but is outside of the control of the system. Volatility can come from different sources and impacts both ETH staked and price of ETH direct. So I might eat while I'm doing this. I got my hot oatmeal here, oatmeal with raisins for my morning breaky, but I might not, so we'll see. I'm just letting let it be me. Sorry. Attacks on ETH2 are easier to scale than on ETH1. In ETH2, the physical and hardware-driven burdens of the network, participation recede to essentially minimal hardware and power consumption. Moreover, the flourishing of DeFi and eventual connectivity to ETH2 can vastly accelerate and magnify this trend. So I would just consider this buying the vote. In ETH1, to buy the vote or to buy a hash price, you have to actually buy a computer, plug it in, and do all this stuff. Where on ETH2, you can just go on a DEX, buy some ETH, set up some validators, and in 2 weeks, you could be the one who's doing it. Or you could like probably control other validators because they're gonna like rent off their staking power, and like these things are all becoming more and more connected where you are starting to have control over your assets more, and which means you can extract rent from them. So if you have an availability in your validator to sequence transactions, and that's something you can sell, capital efficient validators might sell that. And then someone who wants to buy all that sequencing might still be able to buy it on ETH2. And yeah, not that it's a bad thing, but attacks on ETH2 might be easier to scale. Capital efficient validators are more predictable. So while participation from Ethereum enthusiasts is important for a successful beacon chain launch, people like me who don't really necessarily aren't doing it for the money, but are doing it to kind of just make sure the chain launches in a secure network, is ultimately inadequate to reach sufficient levels of security. And I love this part because I am definitely in that whole altruistic pool of people, but I do understand that you can't, I wouldn't say you can't, but it's very difficult to launch a globally secure chain unless you're being very, very, very efficient on the crypto economics of it all. Because no one's going to sit there losing money forever. Some people might sit there just saying breaking even forever, but eventually other people will gain faster, and the people who are creating this network will be left behind. And then that network will be, after a certain amount of time, insecure because the other networks will be so secure that attacking that network will end up being easier. So again, the most secure network will be arguably the most efficient network. So altruism is great for bootstrapping and getting something started, but eventually you need to make sure things are efficient. Targeting 13.8% of the total Ethereum supply staked in ETH 2.0 will match security levels at ETH 2.1 at historical prices. We calculate that the target ETH stake rate for adequate security under historical price fluctuations is that price. Which I think is really cool because that means that if ETH goes up, with EIP 1559, potentially the supply of ETH might be somewhat stable, could be somewhat of a burn. So at least supply is going to be somewhat stable, potentially over the next, I don't know how many years, right? And then if there's somewhat of a historical total supply, stable total supply, and that more and more people are using this network, the price should arguably go up, which means that if your minimum staking amount is 13.8 to start the chain, you should be able to get much higher than that and then still have much higher security than ETH 2.1, which I think is the goal. You want to be at least at ETH 2.1, but obviously much higher if possible. Economies of scale for validating exist, but are reduced at higher ETH prices. Unlike proof-of-work environments where profitability can only be accomplished by increasingly large-scale operations, ETH2 validating becomes progressively less expensive as the price of ETH increases. Exciting. So what's really exciting about that, in my opinion, is that, if you believe in the chain, you believe that ETH price is going to go up, even if it's long-term. So whatever costs to validating are currently, they should go down as network costs go down, as bandwidth costs go down. These costs should go down, and if ETH price goes up, your rewards in those fixed cost dollar prices, or fiat prices, should go down because your rewards in ETH, which is relative to the dollar, would go up. So very, very, very cool. We generally find the network economics highly favorable for more decentralized network participation. Meeting ETH2 design vectors. I don't care what nobody tells me. I will not understand how it makes sense for miners on ETH1 or proof of work to stay decentralized. It seems to make the most sense for me that in Bitcoin or Ethereum 1, you would just mine wherever you see energy inefficiencies. So if you can get electricity for super cheap somewhere, and you could put some computers out there with connectivity on internet, you can mine Bitcoin, and you can sell that Bitcoin and make money and arbitrage the electricity. That, in my opinion, is the use case of proof of work. That's awesome. It's awesome to be able to arbitrage electricity across the world and leverage out some capital inefficiencies or just market inefficiencies. Um, Great. But I'd like to see something do something more than that. Bitcoin is great for arbitraging market inefficiencies. Um, what Ethereum could be really great at is decentralizing a global market and providing a way for a global market to take part in a, central, in a decentralized, I don't even know, a network that's secure and easy to use and that could do more than just arbitrage markets and can actually bring some long-term lasting value. So that's what I'm hoping ETH 2.0 can do and these type of staking models. So currently I'm interested in Near. I know Near just released their on mainnet their staking system. I don't know much about it. I know that it's not this staking. I understand that. There's so many different types of proof of stake out there, so don't think they're all the same. But at the same time, it's very difficult for Ethereum to move to this new system because they have all this ETH1 state to move over. Whereas an empty blockchain that's starting from nothing has no pre-existing issues to deal with, and so they might be able to research and do some cool things that might be able to help out Ethereum in this whole upgrade process they're going through. Okay, 77.7% of the current ETH supply is in validator qualified wallets holding over 32 ETH. That is not me, sadly. Approximately 86.6 million ETH is being held by non-exchange wallets with over 32 ETH. An additional 18.7 million ETH is managed by exchanges, so that could be doing staking services. This is a compelling, serviceable, addressable market. And the key objective of the incentive program to maximize network participation should be to convert these wallets to active validators. And I think there won't really be an issue with this because I think you'll see a lot of, if you've got over 32 ETH, you're probably somewhat of an ETH head. And so, I think that, it might be a misleading number because, how many wallets is that? That's a lot of ETH, but that could be a few wallets holding like 3,000 ETH. I don't really know. I'm sure they'll dig into that later on in the paper. And I know that I love Ethereum, and I could have had over 32 ETH throughout my time, doing a lot of crazy projects. It just happened that I don't. But I think projects like Rocket Pool will really cause this to not be a problem. So they have, you look it up if you want. I'm not going to be shilling Rocket Pool right now. But I think it's a great way to onboard people who might only have, 1 or 2 ETH, or even, maybe like 16, 20 ETH, or even 32 ETH, but they're not fully ready to take all their ETH and throw it into a node. That's fully me. Even if, I have maybe a wallet value of 32 ETH or close to that, I guess, on the Marma J Foundation. And I want to validate on the Marma J Foundation, but I can't just take the whole foundation's assets and just throw them into a validator with all this risk. But potentially, what I want to do is run a Rocket Pool validator, where I put up 16 ETH, and then other people in the community put up a mix of 16 ETH, and then I run the node, and it kind of becomes a community. I'll run a community effort to get this, 13.8% and higher. And so I'm okay with keeping my keys and running my own node, but still providing, I'm providing something for the community. I'm allowing people with less than 32 ETH to stake, and I'm putting up some risk. And that allows me to get some NETH, which I can sell and trade at the value of whatever that is, while this process is happening. Because I also don't think it's reasonable for a lot of these people who are in this boat, right? If you only have 33 ETH, 34 ETH, you might not be willing to risk any of it. ETH is gas fees. If you risk 32 ETH, how can you even use ETH1 for 2 years? You don't get rewards. So there's a lot of unsaid in stats like this. But again, when we get into the paper, I'm sure we'll get there. ETH2 is paying significantly less for security. This is super important in my opinion. Efficiency. Using current beacon chain specs and 15.5 million ETH staked, which would be 13 point. So that's the number. So that's the number we need. We need 15.5 million ETH stake to be at that 30.8% number. We estimate a network inflation of 0.55% per year. So, for example, this is the inflation we have now, and this is the inflation we're hoping to get to. But we're going to be putting, with EIP 1559, from what I understand, this number could be brought down to like 1%, maybe even like 0 at times. It'd be variable, I suppose. But like I think from what I remember, the numbers would be around like 2% instead of 4 to almost 4.5%. So I think what's cool is that, okay, so if we're at 2.1 with EIP 1559 fee market change, you're losing, about 3% of that inefficiency you had. What happens here? Do you still get like a 1-2% gain in efficiency? And if so, could you get an Ethereum 2.0 with a burn essentially? Yeah, not sure. I guess we'll figure that out in the paper or as research continues. But this is the kind of stuff I want to research eventually. Eventually, I'd like to research the economics of like real stuff, like network economics, not like token economics, but like how do you secure a network through economic incentives when not everyone is motivated by the same things? Like I'm not motivated by capital, by increasing my capital. I want to increase my ETH so that I could have more ownership of the Ethereum network so that I can do my best to secure that ownership, because I understand that in Ethereum 2, the more percent of the network I own, if I do a good job of securing my keys, then I am securing the total network. So that's how it works for me. And I guess that might mean that I am capitally motivated, but I also give away a lot of ETH to people just because, I want to support them and help them learn that they can do this as well. So it's not really a, I don't know. I just want to be able to secure the network. I think that's basically, yeah. Anyways, network security is heavily reliant on the price stability of ETH. I'm primarily concerned with regards to the economic stability and security of ETH 2.0 as the resilience of the network. At low ETH prices, so basically, yeah, so if you have ETH very volatile and ranging from $1,000 to $200, then the security of the network is about the $200 price, because if someone's trying to attack the network, it's even worse if it's volatile, because they can buy a bunch of ETH at 200, sell it at 1,000, and then buy a bunch more at 200, sell it at 1,000, buy a bunch more at 200, and then with all the by then they might have only 5% in the network, 10% in the network, and then 20% in the network, and all of a sudden one more it'd be way more than that. It'd be within one turn, if it was 200 to 500, and then 5% of the network and sold it 1,000 and bought back, they'd have they'd have more than enough of the network in one turn of that volatility to attack the network completely, or within this 30%. If you have 2/3 of the network, whatever. And then potentially, if it was super volatile, maybe someone could get, if someone was massively wealthy, maybe they could get 66% of the network in a few trades. If everything's interconnected and everything's on a DEX and someone has billions of dollars in UTSD, who knows what's possible in 3-4 years. So I think these types of things are important to think about for the mid to long term, where when you get ETH1 compostability on ETH2 across shards and across rollups and all this stuff, I think you start seeing some sort of real risk, because you have the Near blockchain, for example, and they've got their end DAI, right? And so if they've got a token bridge to DAI, well, what happens when they've got 1 billion DAI over there and they got 1 billion DAI on Tron and 1 billion DAI, and I'm not saying those chains are any good, because there could be 100 billion DAI on ETH. I'm just whatever, relative to the numbers I'm using. But what happens when all other networks are composable with the chain? And so an attacker is able to kind of attack all those weaker chains and bridge over to attack ETH. And this is where I think a really big concern should lie soon, is if all these assets are moving away from Ethereum. I already think it's a big issue. If all these stable coins are on Ethereum and they're more valuable than the network security of Ethereum, there seems to be this ease of just creating some fake stablecoin value and buying a bunch of ETH and then attacking the network, which you can't do right now. like no hate on anybody, but like SBF or Almeida, whatever. Everyone's accusing him of using his exchange's centralized token in Cream Finance and using that to take out a loan of a valuable decentralized token, and then using those funds to withdraw and short the markets and make some money. But that's just a little bit of money on some centralized coin and whatever. And I don't really care about that kind of whatever. It's play the market to make some money. One way or another, everyone's going to do it and everyone's doing it, whatever. The point is, what if that was a much larger decentralized platform and someone had a centralized stable coin they were using and they weren't really audited, let's say, and they minted $1 billion of this stable coin to go loan out some actual ETH. And it was ETH 2.0, and so now they have so they can use only half because it's risky. Okay, so they have $500 million ETH, $500 million in ETH. That's insane. Well, it's insane that let's say Coinbase pulls a Tether, or let's say Tether, BitMEX just prints $1 billion Tether, and with ETH 2.0 decides, okay, we're going to mint $1 billion Tether in one block. We're going to borrow $500 million in Tether across all these different liquidity platforms in the next block. And then the third block, we're going to start staking across, 10,000 things so no one notices. And I'm just using a very simple, pathway. Obviously, no one would just do it in one transaction. You would do it over time and you would whatever. And it might, one exchange, right? So here's the thing. So we've already said here that 18.7 million is managed by exchanges. And we've said that 15.5 million. This is stuff that when I read the papers, I get sidetracked all the time because I'm like, wait a second. You're telling me that right now, centralized exchanges have more than enough ETH to secure the network? That doesn't seem very secure to me. But what gives me hope is this number here, that 86 million. That's held by off exchange wallets, because in my opinion, if half of this gets staked, you're at almost 10 million. That's going to be more like 2/3. That's two. So that means centralized exchanges will hold 2/3 of the Ethereum network. I'm already getting kind of confused here. And if this entire, and I would assume it's more likely this entire number gets staked. I would assume that with services well, not entire number, but what I mean is with services like Rocket Pool, what I would assume is initially maybe only 1-2 million, but I would assume that over time, as Rocket Pool found a market for RETH and NETH, a lot more people on exchange. It's like DAI. DAI has the whole built-in savings rate now and all that. So a lot of wallets will give you built-in savings on your DAI now because they're actually just using a smart contract to build it in. So I think a lot of this ETH will be staked on the back end. Anyways, I don't know. It just seems like weird numbers, but we'll get into it more. See, I've already gone for 30 minutes and I haven't gone through 6 pages. 6 pages. This is the problem I have when I read papers. The lack of liquidity in phase 0 and 1 might cause unpredictability and centralization. Given the lack of a two-way bridge between ETH1 and ETH2, so funds can't come back from ETH2 to ETH1, and the lack of transaction capabilities in phases 0 and 1, we expect a secondary market to form, facilitating through derivatives and centralized exchanges. So this is where I think Rocket Pool is super cool, because you don't need a centralized exchange to provide the derivative. You could have a decentralized derivative, open source from what I understand, and so that you could have you don't have to deposit into a centralized exchange to get that derivative of being able to transfer around ETH2 before phase 2 comes. Beware of derivative attacks. The Ethereum ecosystem is rapidly evolving, and so is Ether as an asset class, with options volume increasing and unique financial instruments like flash loans being used to exploit malicious exploits. With this momentum, derivatives could become the flavored avenue of attack for adversaries. I think this is definitely what's going to happen. I think this is the biggest issue that we're going to see. I think as someone who likes reading smart contracts and putting ideas together, it's so much fun to think through how could you use this contract and this contract and this contract and this flash loan and these different little functions to attack. And not that I would want to attack Ethereum or anything, or any platform, but it's fun to think through, and I definitely see the gray line where if it's fun to think through, the only way to know if you're right is to actually do it. So Recommendations: increase the base reward factor to at least 128. We acknowledge the implications for increasing the rewards payment and for security, but at a base reward factor of 64, we believe the network is underpaying for security, and it would be prudent for the network to err on the side of caution during its phased migration to proof of stake. I agree with this completely. First of all, err on the side of caution. Second of all, reward your validators. I mean, this is a huge change, like the researchers are saying. It's unprecedented, in my opinion, going from proof of work to proof of stake in the same blockchain. People are taking a huge risk putting this much economic value into locked up for who knows how many years. I mean, seriously, the ETH, this has taken 5 years, 6 years. Okay, and then how long is the network going to take? 2 years, hopefully, maybe longer. You got to provide rewards for the people who are, especially at the start. Those rewards can decrease over time, obviously, they're going to. And then explore a more dynamic method to change rewards in the event of a shock. So, for example, like they said, volatility is where you get your security. So lack thereof would be better. So just in case there's extreme volatility or extreme price collapse, so MakerDAO and MakerDAO had anyways. Tuesday, Black Monday, May 12th, whatever that day was, when ETH price went down and the Oracle stopped work, whatever that was. It happened on Maker, and that's all it happens. But it can't be happening, obviously, at network layer. It'd be a huge issue. And I still I'm just going to say, I cannot believe Maker didn't give back people's money. Like, that's always going to leave a sour taste in my mouth. I don't know. It's so bothersome to me. Is it only like $4 million or something like that? I mean, I don't know. I don't have $4 million, but if I had $4 million, I would probably have tried to pay back those people their money. Because, I mean, damn. It's only $4 million, man. You're trying to be a multi-billion-dollar, company, asset class, whatever. Anyways, a lot of people are gonna hate DAI for a long time for that. A lot of people lost a lot of money. What time is it? Oh, I got some time. How long? I think the instruction is pretty short. Yeah. So I'm gonna go through the intro. I'm gonna end it off there. This video's gone way too long for what it was. And then tomorrow I will go through the background. I think it's also very short. Just kind of talking about like what's happening, what's going on, and I'll probably go through the framework as well. Again, I think I didn't get through the framework last time. You get to a little bit of math, a little bit of visualizing some conditions and seeing it, which I think is really helpful. Let's see, and then I'll save. So maybe I might even do chapter 3 and 4 later on today, but chapter 5 I'll save for a day where I'm actually gonna sit. Like my head's a bit foggy today. It's been that way for a couple of days, so yeah. So for today, I'm just gonna finish this up. Got a meeting later on with Mintbase and stuff, and then yeah, go from there. So introduction. So I'm gonna have some of my oatmeal because my throat is dry. Okay. Still warm, which is good. So, the Ethereum 2.0 network upgrade, also termed Serenity, represents an ambitious shift to new technological and crypto-economic foundations for the Ethereum blockchain. Serenity not only introduces sharding in a new virtual machine, the EWASM, but also marks a gradual shift towards proof-of-stake consensus algorithm and incentive system, which has far-reaching implications on the economic properties of the network. There exists a substantial body of work on ETH 2.0's technological changes and associated impacts from research and the new primitives and components to the exploration of new attack vectors and security risks in the system. This is not the focus of this report, and we assume basic knowledge of Ethereum and its roadmap throughout. So if you don't know what they're talking about there, I did a review of the Ethereum beige paper a couple days ago. You should read the paper. You don't have to watch my review. You can go to the review and click. I'll put the paper in the notes or in the comments or whatever. So you can go to that video, read the beige paper. It's very quick, very easy to go through. And I think that will help maybe help understand like at least the changes here that are going on. And I think I did the Casper paper review as well. So Casper is also a big consensus upgrade. to the chain from Ethereum 1 to Ethereum 2.0. And if you don't know what Casper is, you should read the Casper paper. It's like 10 pages, very quick, very short. This report is a review of the economic incentive mechanism underpinning ETH 2.0's proof of stake system, and is focused on analyzing Serenity's design from an economic standpoint, focusing specifically on security and stability of the system. The objectives are twofold: to describe in plain terms how the system works from an economic point of view, what behaviors it rewards and penalizes, and the yields validators can expect from participating in the network; to identify risks derived from the economic parameters of the system under endogenous permutations and exogenous shocks, and make recommendations to address them. Pretty straightforward. We find that ETH 2.0 system is highly complex, but elegantly constructed and deeply thought out. That's a nice sentence. I wish I could write like that. I mean, I do write from time to time. I don't enjoy writing though, but I like that sentence. That we find that the Ethereum 2.0 system is highly complex, but elegantly constructed and deeply thought out. In this context, we explore the following key risks. Oh, I love that. Complexity. I love bullet points too. Like I hate papers that just big blocks of text. No, I don't want your big blocks of text. Give me papers should be more like, especially computer science papers, in my opinion, should be more like programming. So, give me your first line, indent, give me your block of code that pertains to this line. If you have an indent between this, indent again to show me that you're indenting to something that will be in this. It really helps you read through it a lot more efficiently, because sometimes I don't need to go through a second part. But anyways, we find that the ETH 2.0 system is highly complex. Anyways, complexity of system design and value proposition. Uncertainty of phases 0 and 1. That's kind of difficult. Possibility that yields may not incentivize enough ETH staked. I don't think we'll have that issue personally, but it could be a possibility. I think that any yield is better than no yield. I think we're in a global environment right now where people aren't getting any yield, and I think a lot of people don't increasing amount of subset of the population globally doesn't trust the government, and that comes with the government fiat system. They're looking for something else, and so I think Bitcoin, Ethereum, other chains. But if you tell people that, okay, with Bitcoin you can earn nothing, but with Ethereum, and there's still inflation with Bitcoin because there's more being mined all the time. But with Ethereum, whatever, as an incentive idea, total supply might be capped in a couple of years, and you will continue to gain some sort of rewards greater than 0. I think this won't be an issue. I think there's enough people in the community now to stake at that 13.8% level, and I think it'll only grow as people realize they can hold a somewhat stable asset class that will increase in magnitude over time. High dependency on the price of ETH, which makes sense, which I think is a good thing, because I think it shows people why why would you want to stake? Because the security of the network depends on price. Therefore, there is incentive for the price to be stable or go up to increase security. So the entire network, people much smarter than you, you can think as an individual. People are as long as people are smarter than you, richer than you, or more involved than you, they are also incentivized to keep the price of ETH stable or up. So that can help, in my opinion. Frictionless scaling up or down of the number of validators, in my opinion, is a risk, but it's important. So it's not frictionless, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So I don't really know. It takes 2 weeks, in my opinion, to get started, and I guess to exit, you can't really exit. I don't really know the whole exit. I've never tried exiting. I don't really know the exiting, but I know that once you move it to ETH2, you can't. It's like burned essentially. You're validating on a new system. So I guess eventually when you exit, there will be some sort of a waiting period as well, of 4 months or whatnot. So I wouldn't say it's frictionless, but I see what they're saying here. There's a very big risk if you had a frictionless scaling up and down of validators. You need to make sure it's very difficult. How do you ensure when validators can come in, when validators can leave? When they leave, do they take their money with them? How much do they take with them? Depending on slashing conditions. I think there could be some sort of social thing there where, like potentially you can put up another validator as collateral. So if you have two validators that you prove you own, potentially when you F the network, you could say, okay, well, you know what, I want my entire stake instantly, but if I have slashed, if I've done a slashable condition that you find out in the next 4 months, you can actually slash my current validator as of, so I can have my ETH. And now it might be a way of getting ETH a bit quicker. Other ways I can think of off the top of my head, but all require complicated, computer stuff. So I'm sure these researchers will figure it out. Like, I don't know. I listen on the calls all the time of like the ETH2 researchers and people doing like MPC stuff or validator privacy stuff, and I'm like, yo, super wild. So I have no doubt that the Ethereum developers will figure out a way for that to happen. Finality attacks and extra protocol attacks. So attacks on finality, just more based on, if you can cause a subset of nodes to stop finalizing or just come offline, I suppose. Then if you can get more than 1/3 of the network to come offline, you reduce finality, and the rest of the nodes would lose their stake. Well, and those nodes, I guess all offline nodes would lose their stake. So even when they came back on, they would have some sort of economic loss. And then extra protocol attacks, I guess, would mean like just attacking from outside of the network. So maybe composability attacks, a DeFi attack, stuff like that. Or like, Rocket Pool. So if half the network is taken through Rocket Pool, and you can find a way to attack Rocket Pool or get some code, malicious code, who are using to download all the software, I hope Rocket Pool can continue to decentralize their stack and keep everything open source, because I think that will be one of the biggest benefits to Rocket Pool with open source. One of the biggest risks to Rocket Pool is that some parts of the stack might not be open source, and then someone will put some malicious code in there. So all variables and inputs dealing with the construction of ETH 2.0 itself are based on the current specifications at time of writing, version 0.12.03. I guess we're going to explain it. See GitHub page. So, oops. I copied it. I should be able to paste it. Or did I not? Nope. Let's see. I wanted to just be able to... Nope. It doesn't want to let me just... Because if I click it, it's going to open in this page, and I don't feel like doing that. I'll read it after. Furthermore, the conclusions of this report are derived largely from 3 types of sources: a substantial body of research, documentation, blog posts, and other material related to ETH 2.0. I'm assuming... Anyways, I'm going to keep going. A series of stakeholder interviews comprising the following groups: ETH2 researchers, ETH2 implementers, pool operators, staking of a service, infrastructure providers, retail investors, users enthusiasts, institutional investors, and then an economic model representing ETH 2.0 Phase 0. Okay, the conclusions from stakeholder interviews are synthesized and concluded in a report wherever relevant. They can also be found in Appendix B. Very cool. The economic model is the foundation of the scenario analysis represented in this chart and figures throughout the report. It can be found here. Very cool. I would love to actually read. I'm excited to go through the appendix now. Structurally, we start providing backgrounds, which we'll go through next time, for the definition of ETH 2.0, as well as the core design goals and properties of Serenity. The purpose of this report is not to describe in detail the functionings of the system as such. We only provide context where directly relevant to the objectives of the report. Moreover, we focus primarily on ETH2 Phase 0, given its immediacy, and now even more immediate, and the uncertainty inherent in the following phases. I mean, yeah, they don't know what's happening in ETH Phase 1 and 2, so why even go there for now? We follow this section by defining a framework for evaluating security, which serves as the following foundation for our analysis. Section 5 then gives an overview of the economics of ETH2 Phase 0, covering rewards and penalties, slashings, and costs of network participation. Section 6 articulates the construction of the economic model, outlining key assumptions. Section 7 outlines measurements and expectations for network inflation and yields. Section 8 introduces a required rate of return model to analyze yields, while Section 9 covers economic attack vectors. I'm excited for all of that. Section 10 covers our scenario analysis around the key economic parameters of the system. We then conclude with recommendations and potential next steps. So sorry for all my tangents there, but I'm going to stop there. Maybe later on today or tomorrow, as I said, I'll go through the background. Probably tomorrow. Today I want to go through the NIM GitHub, but we can check out this. Oh, I did open up a new page. Nice. I love when it opens up a new page. So this is the ETH 2.0 specs. Okay, well, I'm going to go through it quickly since we're here. To learn more about sharding, see the sharding facts. I do want to go into the sharding facts later. I'll go through this later. See, this is all infinite tabs got opened up on my computer. It hosts the current ETH research specs. Discussions about the rationale can be brought up and discussed as issues. So these are all the contributors. Cool. It's mostly in Python and Solidity. So this is why I got to learn Python but I'm learning Viper to try and learn Python. Just like I learned Solidity to try and learn JavaScript, and it kind of worked. Because by learning to write Solidity, I can read JavaScript. By learning to write learning to write Viper, hopefully I'll learn to read Python. Specs. So, okay, cool. Course, looking at everything that can be found in specs. These are divided into phases. Each phase. Okay, perfect. So you can see it all right here. It's actively in R&D, no formal specs. Okay, but I mean, there are like some nice specs for phase 1, which I'm excited. I've focused most of my research on phase 0, to be honest. I guess almost all my research on phase 0. I have not. I've touched a little bit into phase 1, but let's see. Beacon chain for shards, custody game. Here, this is actually where I want to get. This is where I find most interest, like fraud proofs, transition of state. I think that's what I'm talking about there. Light client syncing seems very interesting. Sorry, this is for my own personal. And hopefully I'll start doing all this stuff live, at least digging into it live on here. But yeah, that's all. That's all for this. Yeah, meeting in half an hour. Not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna eat this breakfast I got, and maybe clean up a little bit the house. Hope whoever might have watched this enjoyed it. Please feel free to read the paper yourself. Like, I'll take forever to get through it, but if you just read it yourself, it'll go through a lot faster. Also, this only took 45 minutes, so if you did just press 2x speed, you could get through it in like 25 minutes, and then be on something else. Read it, go through like these videos. Go through them in 2x speed while you're washing your dishes. Not because I think I'm worth listening to, but I do try to at least go through some of these topics and make sure I go through it all. So even if I'm going on tangents, which might be annoying, I'm sorry for that. I'm at least hopefully helping bring up new topics and new concepts for people that people can go dig into on their own. Again, the idea is on the external side of this, for people watching, enjoy, smile, learn something new. But most, like 99% of this is for me, so that I can just have a record of this. I forget everything. Like, I'll forget everything I went through the moment I went through it. Like, I stopped recording right now. I'll forget all of this. And I will play this video for myself as a playlist later on, just so I can hear my ideas, hear my thoughts, hear what's going on, hear the paper. Because I could be in the shower playing it. I could be washing dishes, hanging out, playing it on a long road trip, playing it. And so, I don't know. Like, people have podcasts all the time. So I like turning research papers into podcasts. I need to do better at not going on many tangents. I need to do better at maybe cutting up some of this. So the idea is cutting up some of the non-tangent parts of this and moving it over to the Marma J Foundation channel and having more tutorials on the paper. So like paper reviews without all my tangents, and if I miss parts, I'll go through it again and re-record those parts. But that's a long-term project that might never happen. But for now, at least I know that I have a recording, and this might take me 10 videos to do, but eventually I'll get through it. So hope you all have a wonderful day. Hopefully see you all soon, guys.